Hi guys, Recovery Gym. It's an absolutely minging day here. I'll show you that in a minute. I've just been. There's a seagull over there. It looks like he's wanting some food. I don't have any. Yeah, it's a horrible day. I've been rained off, but I've been going around a lot of my new customers and things like that, just drinking tea and introducing myself and basically seeing what needs to be done, taming the wild of the gardens. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit. It's coming up to my 41st birthday on Sunday, and that's kind of marking a year of the start of my journey almost. I like to think that I had a dry January because I wasn't drinking vodka, if I remember rightly. I might have had a few beers, things like that. I was really trying my best to make a go of it and be sober, but obviously having a few beers was kind of giving me the taste for it. And it wasn't until my 40th birthday, and some might look at that as, say, midlife crisis and all that, but for me it was an excuse. We were allowed to have quite a few beers. I was allowed to have quite a few beers in the house, but I did get vodka. It was my birthday. Who's going to stop me? It was hidden, of course, because I knew it was bad, but I still did it. And yeah, I had a nice birthday. I didn't get completely smashed, but after that it kind of started escalating again. My ex and me and the kids went to come over here actually for after my birthday. So we drove all the way to nearly Heysham, where you get the boat, and the car broke down. Now, we dealt with it. I like to think that I kind of manned up and came good and managed to get a tow truck to tow us all the way back to Hull, which was like 2.5 hours. We try to keep the kids' morale up and things like that. And then when we got back to the house, my partner decided, she needed a glass of wine, and that, was like, ka-ching. So we did. We had a bottle of wine, and then my fault, I kept on saying, well, should we get another one? Should we get another one? I think we ended up having like 4 or 5 bottles between us. It was half term, so the kids were off. I wasn't working. She was off, and the next day she was in bed hanging. I was all right because I'd gotten up to the garage early and got myself some vodka, so I was kind of, laughing, going, see, hangovers aren't that great. But all the while I was just medicating myself with vodka. And it wasn't there and then, but it did start escalating after that. And I really don't remember a lot of the, you know, following days, weeks, because it just got worse and worse and worse until eventually I packed my bags and left, because, I was saying I was unhappy. I was unhappy because I was drinking. I was unhappy because of who I'd turned into, of who I was making my ex-partner become. We were all just deeply unhappy, and I saw this as my kind of out that was going to make everything better. My life was going to be better. So I went and stayed with a friend. I continued drinking because then, he didn't know that my problem was that bad, and it was like a free pass. It escalated, he got pissed off. Eventually, my ex, my friend, my family all kind of got together and was like, right, you're going into rehabilitation centre, a detox centre. Now, I tried to get in there on the Saturday. I think it was about the 14th of March. So this had been kind of going on for 2 months, well, a month and a half. And then I was speaking to my brother, and he said, get into Leeds and then you can get a train. So I packed my bags again. I was willing to do it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to get myself better. I went and got myself a bottle of vodka. I got on the bus. I got into Leeds. I went to a few of my bars because I was like, I'm going to have a bit of a send-off here. I then realised at some point I didn't have my phone. And I was like, how am I going to get in touch with my brother to know what my train is, to know what's going on? I didn't have any cash. And I started asking a few people. I was obviously quite inebriated at this point. So asking people to let me use their phone to do that Find My iPhone thing was just people were just looking at me and going, "No, you're not having my phone." You know, I probably looked like a vagrant, and I eventually started speaking to this guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'll be able to help you." And at this point, my warped mind was like, "Oh, my family are going to turn their back on me. I've got my bottle of vodka. I don't know where my phone is. This is me. This is my life. I'm going to end up just being on the streets." So I started hanging about with this guy, and he was begging to get some money for crack, and we eventually got some. I say we, I was still hanging out with him, and he offered me some, and I was like, "Nah, I'm fine with my vodka, thanks." And that's one saving grace that I didn't go down that road. Cut a long story short, I eventually spoke to a police officer who then put me in touch with Ocean, I believe, because I still remember the name. They then were able to contact my brother. I got a taxi back to my friend's house, and then the next day I got through to Ocean Recovery in Blackpool, and that really kind of was one of the best things that happened to me in my life. Now, I did relapse when I came out, you know, I've told you that before, but it was the start of my journey. You know, I at least at that point, just before going into the recovery centre, like almost kind of admitted to myself that, yeah, there is an issue here. There is something that I need to deal with to have a life, to make myself not fixed, because I'll never be fixed, but to be able to manage my life again and be able to kind of sort out where I'm going and what I'm doing. Now at the time, I thought, right, I'm gonna get out of this and I'm gonna get back with my ex. That's what I want, so I'm doing this for her, and that's the wrong thing. You know, I did want to go back with her, but the wrong thing was to do it for someone else rather than doing it for myself. So when I came out, I relapsed massively, and it went on for about 2 or 3 months from beginning of May, when I was in my little flat, to until I came over here, which was 4th of July. So yeah, what are we, May, June, yeah, 2 and a bit months. And then I got over here, did 2 weeks isolation, didn't drink in there, and then just started drinking again. Just couldn't stop. And once I'd had that taste again, that was it. I was back on track one, you know. And then got sober a couple of times, back on it, sober a couple of times, back on it, and it was just the vicious cycle again. There was just no way of kind of getting out of it, and that really, I didn't know what to do. I knew there was meetings over here, but I didn't want to kind of go down that road, because I thought, I can do this myself. I've done it before. That was what I believed. I've done it before. I'd never done it before. I'd never been sober for more than, 45 days. When I came out of Ocean, that was it, 45 days. Which now seems, a pittance, but it's not. 45 days is a long time, but I didn't do that myself. I was in a locked cage almost for 28 of those days, and then I was at my friend Kathy's house for 2 and a bit weeks. So I was being controlled in my drinking. I wouldn't have dared drink in front of them, because I knew I was on the path. But as soon as I was on my own, that was it. I didn't have the tools. I didn't want to do the tools. I just wanted to drink once I'd got the taste of it again, and that was the thing, I relapsed because I got the taste for it. Now I can say that it was because my ex didn't want me back, or, I was on my own, or we were in lockdown. I can use all of these excuses and these triggers, as it were. But the reason was, I thought I could go and have one drink and that'd be fine. I couldn't. Once I had one drink, that was it. It was all bets are off, and where we end up. And I ended up in a fucking really bad place. So eventually I ended up at the north part of the island. I may have mentioned this before, and my brother came and he found me because I sent him my location, and he came up and got me, and he took me to hospital. And after getting detoxed and coming out, I went and did my meetings, and I've not looked back. So that's nearly a year ago. As I say, Sunday will be when I remember I was drinking heavily before the Christmas. I was 2019, and I kind of had moments of on and off, and I was going to try and this, that, and the other. But the fact that I wasn't being abstinent was the main issue. I should have just, I didn't want to, I was lying to my ex and saying, not lying, but I was saying, yeah, I'll be okay. I'm not an alcoholic. And although she knew I probably was, she was probably thinking, what's it going to be, a lifetime of neither of us drinking or this, that, and the other. So I guess it was difficult for her to kind of accept the same way as it's difficult for me to accept. So as I say, it's nearly a year since the start of the journey, and although I'm 5 and a bit months in, I still put not my sobriety date, because of course it's not, but the start of who I'm becoming started back then, and I needed to fall off that ledge big time to actually get where I am now. Now I apologise to my ex, my family, to my friend, to anyone, that I've kind of hurt or upset along the way, because I needed to fall from grace, I guess. Not that I was ever in grace, but I needed to fall hard, because I would have seen it as just an easy way back up. Oh yeah, I didn't fall that far, so I didn't have a big problem, but I fell massively in that. I'm not saying everyone has to have a massive downfall before they can get themselves better, but for me, that's, I always said I didn't regret anything in my life, because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. And that's still very true, but obviously I'm upset that I hurt and upset family, friends, loved ones, and and I apologise for that, I really do. But I wouldn't be who I am today, right here, right now, if it wasn't for the way that I spectacularly failed at my life. And now it's a case of rebuilding from rock bottom up, from scratch up, from ground zero up, and that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about that today. I will do the usual, and oh Christ, let me just turn all this off and show you what kind of a day it is. Sorry about that. So, I mean, it's a beautiful view. You can normally see the hills and the mountains in the back there, but that's Douglas on a very bleak and dreary day. I don't know if you can hear me when I'm putting out the window, but this is Douglas. So yeah, I was kind of rained off today, but as I say, I've been keeping busy, and it's Friday tomorrow, so woohoo! That's for you, Sam. Yeah, I'll be doing some over the weekend. I've got a busy weekend, got helping a friend move on Saturday, and just bits and bobs, but yeah, life is good, and just keep doing what you're doing. If you're struggling, then get in touch. If you know people that are struggling, get in touch with me. And I'm not saying I'm going to help, and I can point people in the right direction to what's helping, to what's working for me, and that is people tried to do it for me and I didn't listen, but then I did start listening, and that's the main point. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share my short-lived kind of experience that I have up until now. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I feel is necessary. People are enjoying my videos. People are giving me good feedback, and every now and then someone says that they're helping them. So I appreciate that feedback, and it means the world to me that people are watching and taking something from it. So yeah, thanks for that. Like, subscribe, share, comment, DM me, all the above and below. Have a good day. Might do one tomorrow, might not, but if not, have a good weekend. I'll be on Recovery Gym, Instagram, Twitter, all the other stuff. But yeah, cool. Peace. Take care. Bye bye.